Today, the Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land, and Justice is now called to order. Today's Friday, August 7, 2020, and the time is 1:05 p.m. Notices for this confirmation hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, July 31, and again on Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Monday, July 31, and Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. This Zoom meeting is hosted by the legislature's MIS and AV staff, and I thank them for their assistance. The host will mute all Zoom participants until called upon by the chair. Members of the committee or the legislature wishing to speak may indicate their desire through the in-app chat feature. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized before speaking and begin by stating their name for record-keeping purposes. Each member will be allowed, questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. The personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing by the host. We have several agenda items for today. There are several nominations. So this is a confirmation hearing for the reappointment of Sonia L. Celian to serve as a member of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority Board of Trustees. For the appointment of Edwin J.C. Regis to serve as a member to the Planning Alternate Representative of the Guam Historic Preservation Review Board. The reappointment of Anita F. Orlino to serve as a member of the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. The reappointment of Maria G. Cruz to serve as a member of the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. The reappointment of Ronald F. Eclavea to serve as a member of the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues and thank them for being here today, beginning with the Minority Leader, Senator Terlaje. Thank you, Senator. And Senator James Moylan. Thank you, Senator, for being here today. So we'll begin with the first item on our agenda, which is the reappointment of Sonia L. Celian to the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority Board of Trustees. She's been appointed to serve a term length of 6 years, beginning April 15, 2020 to April 14, 2026. The GMH Board of Trustees, according to Title 10 of the Guam Code Annotated, is liable for the negligent act of any hospital employee or officer if the board knew or had noticed that said employee or officer was inefficient and incompetent to perform the services for which he was hired, or said board retained such inefficient or incompetent person after knowledge or notice of such inefficiency or incompetency. No trustee shall be liable for any decision made in good faith, non-malicious fulfillment of his duties. The board shall be liable as fiduciaries in the execution of their duties. They shall be no trustee shall be actively engaged in the selling of services or goods to the hospital without the express approval of the board. No trustee shall act when a conflict of interest occurs. So now we will hear from those who signed up to testify on behalf of Ms. Celian. And we ask that testimony be kept to no more than 5 minutes to ensure the timely progression of this hearing. So we will begin now with another trustee, and thank you for being here, and thank you for your service, Ms. Sarah Thomas Nediduk. You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair Terlaje and Senators Moylan and Taitagui, and of course, our nominee for the reappointment to the Guam Memorial Hospital Board, Ms. Sonia Celian. I believe everyone has received my written testimony. Do you have that, Senators? Okay, so I don't want to read from that, but I do just want to very briefly tell you about my experience with the person we're talking about today, the Ms. Sonia Celian. I met her first at the Guam Memorial Hospital Board, where both she and I serve on the Board of Trustees. And she was already on the board, had already been serving on the board, and she was very welcoming and was very open to giving me an orientation, her own perspective on how things were going at the hospital and how she saw the board. And since then, we both have been on the subcommittee for governance and strategic planning, of which she's been very active and made many contributions to that. You all must know that in the last year, since we took our seats, or where the board was, I would say, for a lack of better term, reorganized in the last year and a half, that the Board of Trustees has been very active and participatory in carrying out its fiduciary responsibilities. So we went through the CMS visit. We also were in observance of the Army Corps of Engineers visit to Guam. And we have met regularly. I don't know of a month that has gone by really without the board meeting. And as you know, as we have done in most meetings now, we have been meeting recently via Zoom. So we've Ms. Celian has joined, again, the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, has been very active on the board in carrying out its responsibilities. And I'm just so pleased that we have someone with her background, with her insight, making those contributions to the board. She has made suggestions and shared ideas that I think have been very appropriate and useful in our decision making. So with that, I will just say that it's been a real pleasure serving alongside her. I did not know her prior to a year and a half ago, but it's been absolutely wonderful having her as a colleague on the Board of Trustees. I feel she's absolutely honest and sincere in her carrying out her role as a member of the Board of Trustees, and very, very diligent in terms of making sure she reads the meeting minutes before, and that she really knows as much as she can about the issues that come before us. So she asks questions, as I said, and those are generally, you know, for me, they're really good tips for me when I'm trying to see like who's really serious about this job. So thank you, Sonia, for being on the board with us. And I hope that the legislature confirms you. And if there's any questions that you might want to ask me, I'm available to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for that testimony.
Sorry, Senator, you were muted just a second, so we didn't hear you after. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sarah, for that testimony. And we will now hear from Mallory Morgan. Mallory, you may proceed.
Have a day. Hello, Senators. Thank you for your time and allowing me to come speak on behalf of Ms. Celian's support for her reconfirmation. And I just wanted to come today to speak to Ms. Celian's character. I've worked with Ms. Celian for 2.5 years with the government of Guam at the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. So I know her very well in a professional capacity. And I did submit written testimony, which I hope that you all have a copy of. But just wanted to really confirm and again just reiterate how hardworking and diligent and dedicated she is. She's very detail oriented, and I also work with her in a second job at the US Census, and even in that job as well, she's very thorough in all of her tasks, and she's the type of person that really makes sure that she understands fully a problem before she starts undertaking that task. And also, you know, I think that her character and her personality is probably something that would be valuable to a board when there's many different personalities. She's very positive and she's very infectious, and she has a really great spirit about her. And even if she doesn't agree, I've seen her handle situations with just really great calm persona and integrity. So I just really would like to speak to that and reiterate that I think as a board member for any endeavor, that she would be very valuable given her work ethic. And she has a very diverse background, as I mentioned. She works with the Bureau of Statistics and Plans and also with the census, but has so much work experience in her past that I'm sure really culminates and makes her a very good fit for this board. So just wanted to speak briefly and show my support, and hope that if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morgan, and we appreciate the insight from someone with experience with the nominee as you have. I want to note for the record that we've also received written testimony in support of this nomination from Whitney C. Hoot, Coral Reef Resilience Coordinator at the Guam Bureau of Statistics and Plans. I think now we will proceed to the nominee herself, Sonia. And thank you again for accepting this reappointment. And you may proceed if you have testimony to provide. Oh, if I could recognize the attendance of my colleague, Senator Will Castro. Thank you, Senator. Okay, Sonia, the floor is yours now.
Good day and good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Senator Therese Terlaje, and senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. My name is Sonia Celian, and I have been serving the people of Guam as a Board of Trustees since my appointment in March of 2018. Today, I'm here to accept my nomination for reappointment and want to assert that I still have the drive and the passion to serve the people of Guam in this capacity. As a Board of Trustee, it has always been my goal to make continuous strides to improve the quality of service at Guam's only public hospital. Although at times it can seem like an endless battle to keep afloat, my commitment to the hospital has never wavered. During my current term, I have gained new knowledge and appreciation for the outstanding employees at the hospital. To those unsung heroes at GMH, I applaud your dedication, professionalism, and hard work in providing great care to our patients, most especially during the current pandemic. As trustees, it is our fiduciary responsibility to make responsible decisions on behalf of the people and to be mindful of our financial well-being. It is vital that our public hospitals succeed. The healthcare industry is continuously changing, and the board has to navigate, understand, and ensure that our hospital is best using their resources. It is also critical and part of my mission to see to it that the people of Guam have access to quality healthcare. Although the board oversees the financial health of the hospital, we are often at times left with making decisions to pay one bill over the other, and we have a hospital that is in dire need of capital improvements with no dedicated funding to provide for these improvements. As a planner for the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, I know firsthand the importance of having a strategic plan and following through with timelines to meet the goals and objectives of any project. Some personal accomplishments during my 2-year term on the board as co-chair of the Governance Bylaws and Strategic Planning Subcommittee are reviewing and updating the Board of Trustee bylaws to ensure that the GMHA board is relevant to current needs of the hospital. I also worked with the subcommittee to develop a 5-year strategic plan. And now we are currently tasked with creating measures with targets so we can track and evaluate our progress towards our goals and develop an action plan to ensure that our strategic plans are measurable and feasible. The 5-year strategic plan will include deliberate decisions to ensure the hospital's financial health while maximizing profit and identify and diversify sources of revenue, as well as measures to pay down our debts and conduct more community outreach about the hospital and its current state. I firmly believe transparency is key, and I will exemplify that if reappointed as a trustee. The board currently has a group of very diverse trustees who are engaged and highly involved in moving and working towards positive changes. I have built successful working relationships with the other board members, and we have set a very effective, dynamic relationship for producing results for the hospital. In closing, it is of utmost importance that we set a stable long-term direction for the hospital, and that as a trustee, we are better prepared to understand the hospital services, needs, and trends in the healthcare environment. I believe that a successful trustee will build positive relationships with other board members, the hospital's executive team, medical staff leaders, and the organization's other key stakeholders. Trustees are the voice of the people, and I would be so humbled to continue my service as that voice for the people of Guam. Thank you, Sulang and Dunkulin Asizuas Maasi, for your consideration and trust.
Thank you very much, Ms. Celian, for your service and for your continued willingness to do so. I'm glad that the other member of the board, Ms. Nedidog, also pointed out the committee you're serving on. That's the Facilities Committee. Did I hear that correctly?
Governance, bylaws, and strategic planning.
Oh, governance, bylaws, and strategic planning. Okay, great. Those are all, those were all cited in some of the CMS citations. So, and I want to note that I think the governance has definitely seen improvement. So I want to thank you for all the improvements in those areas. You've been a member since 2015 and
2018.
2018. Okay, this is wrong. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it's just been a couple of years now, and now this will be for a 6-year term. What is the progress of the 5-year strategic plan?
So right now, our subcommittee, actually we just met a few days ago, and our task now is to break out our objectives and give it out to our other subcommittees like capital improvements, financial committee, human resources committee, and just break down the objectives and piece by piece put measurements that we can actually reach and timelines to keep us keep our goals achievable.
Okay. When do you expect it to be completed? Or at least a draft?
The strategic plan is already completed. It's been completed and
implement it?
yes. Okay. So now it's a task of how do we achieve our goals, and now we're just breaking it down piece by piece and having timelines and metrics to measure.
Okay.
If
all
we
right.
reach those goals.
Okay, great. My apologies. When was it last updated then?
It was just updated 2019.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So it's fairly new and current as can be.
Okay, great. Do you have any continuing business or potential interest that might affect your ability to perform your duties as a board member?
I have none.
What about your current employment? Do you think that affects your ability to serve on this board? I know you're currently at the Bureau of Statistics and Plans.
It hasn't in any way, and I feel that it actually strengthens my position at the board because I see overall government. You know, we do a lot of planning and projects for the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and so just helping every agency reach their goals and finances. It's the same concept when I go into the board. It's just dedicated to the hospital though.
I forgot to recognize the attendance of my other colleague, Senator Sabina Perez. Thank you, Senator Perez, for joining me. And again, thank you to Senator Taitukwi, Senator Moylan, Senator Castro, and Senator Perez for being here today. Okay, so, thank you, Sonia. We're going to continue. as a returning member to the board, you mentioned some of the critical capital improvement projects that are necessary. And I want to thank you for giving us in the last fiscal year a list of priorities. I think that very much helped us. And I want to thank the board also for making progress on some of those priorities, even without the money from the excess revenues that was supposed to go to the hospital. So you had found in your own budget enough money to take care of the elevators and to work on continued upgrading of the panel without changing it, and some of the other, and the EHR, right, that you've all been able to accomplish. That was a huge huge feat, I guess, that we've been able to smoothly, or we're working on smoothly changing over to the updated system. And
Yes, correct.
thank you for that. What is your analysis of the status of the HVAC system upgrade? The air conditioning.
Well, the Capital Improvement Subcommittee, I know William Kando and Trustee Sharon Davis are working on that project. We haven't had our last board meeting was a few weeks ago, and we did not get an update on the HVAC, but we're due for a board meeting in 2 weeks.
All right. I know, I have a long list of things that I want to ask you about the hospitals, the details, but maybe you could tell us what you think are the most important things that you've had to work on with the committees that you're working with, and just on the board in general during this pandemic.
Well, of course, finance is always number one. And our second, well, maybe equally priority one, is the condition of our hospital. But of course, it takes money to make improvements. We also are working as a board, we are also working on our individual knowledge of the hospital. So we have taken on training, and as a board, we've done self-evaluations, and that's something new, because to be a good board member, you have to participate and you have to be knowledgeable about what goes on every day at the hospital. And we only meet like once a month. And so it's very hard. Sometimes we're meeting as a reactionary group. So we find out things in the media, and we find out things after it's already done and damaged. And then we're left to be blamed. Oh, the board didn't care, or the board didn't participate. But we're only as good as the knowledge we have, right? Our intentions are there. We want to see our hospital succeed. We have a really great staff. We really do. Sometimes they don't get the acknowledgement they deserve, And I also think that, I know that the hospital has, like every agency, every hospital, every business, there's good and bad times. Well, we constantly hear only the negatives of the hospital. So sometimes as a board member, it's very discouraging, because that when you go in there, you put your all in. The decisions we make are not easy. It always comes down to finance. We want to do this, but we don't have money. We want to do this, but we're behind in our bills. We want to give someone a raise, but we don't have medicine. It always comes down to finance. And I feel like sometimes we don't always get that 100% support. And people deserve a good hospital. They deserve good health care. But we're doing things as a board collaboratively. We're getting knowledge for ourselves, and then we're also having higher expectations of our executive, administrative people. Like we're putting more tasks on them. We're expecting more information, more follow-ups, and more transparency. And I think that we're off to a really good start. It's a really great group, and I would like to continue because we have so many plans. You just have to wait and see.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the board is more active with the details of especially the finances. I think that's a big change, and I hope that you sometimes at the hearings I ask, was the board part of this decision? And it's not always the case. Like you said, sometimes after the fact. But so I hope that especially with the subcommittee that you are on, that you really make that the priority. So thank you for the accomplishments that you have made so far. But I encourage you to push that even more. This is a board of trustees, fiduciary duty for the hospital, and so we want you to be responsible, and that way, yeah, you're right, you need information. I'm with you. I don't like to find out about it in the news and then have to try to answer for it. I think the public deserves to be brought along all along, good or bad. We need to know. Thank you for that. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues now. Senator Taitakui.
Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you first and foremost, Sonia, for stepping up to the plate again and serving on this board. Something that's very dear to my heart. As you know, I've introduced legislation that calls for a task force to be put together, and one of the individuals on the task force is the administrator or his or her designee. And I was wondering if if the board had the opportunity to review this legislation that was passed into law, and if there's any talk amongst the board members, if there should be somebody to represent, and this is regarding building a new hospital. It's our hospital, our life task force. Have you guys been talking about that at all?
Well, I guess because of the pandemic, our focus now or recently is just our patients or COVID patients, and just preparing ourselves for possibly that second wave. We haven't specifically talked about a task force, but I'm sure that.
Yeah, it's actually a legislation that was passed, became into law, and it's a task force. So it's not to create one, but to at least have someone representing from the hospital. It calls for the administrator of the hospital or his or her designee.
Yes, I'm not aware of who that designee would be. They haven't mentioned it at our meetings.
Well, I appreciate it, Sonia, if you can bring it up in the meetings, and maybe I can ask, bring the law or send you a copy of the legislation that was passed into law. And since you mentioned COVID, there's about, I think it was maybe 11 million that was given from COVID, from the CARES Act, from the governor's office to Guam Memorial Hospital, 11.5 million. Is that correct? That number sounds familiar. And in that funding that's given, does the board make recommendations as to how to use that funding, or is it something that the administrator does and just shows the board and saying, this is what we're going to spend it on? Or does the board actually have the ability to talk about where that money should go?
And no, we did not discuss where the money would go, but we were advised that we did receive that funds and it would be going to additional equipment, supplies, and even payroll.
And even payroll, yeah, for the, so I think it was about 11.9 million to be exact. How are the elevators? Are the elevators up, Sonia?
Yes, they're all running, all four.
Yay, Ray, bravo, bravo. That's good news. Good news. You guys are a good board. I greatly appreciate that. Right on. There's, well, first you were appointed in March of 2018. So that means you were appointed by Governor Calvo at the time, correct? Okay, so you're right. And I greatly appreciate his appointing you to this board. It's obvious that you know your stuff, and I greatly appreciate the website that's put up on the board. And transparency, you mentioned earlier, well, you know, you're probably the first board member I know that's up to date on their website on the board minutes and the meetings. So kudos to that, and I hope you continue on. You have my support, total support, Sonia. I believe that you're making great progress there. And I really ask that if you can continue to push for someone to represent this task force regarding building a new hospital. I know it's in a time of COVID, but we still need to prepare for the future. And I know you have a little bit of time spent for that as well. So my last question would be DOC and Guam Behavior and Wellness. These two areas, do you guys have an agreement with the three, with providing like assistance nursing at DOC or nursing at any kind of employees from Guam Memorial Hospital to these agencies?
Yes, we do. We do collaborate
Okay,
with them, and we have nurses that are working there at the DOC.
And the agreement is this something that the board discussed? I've always wondered how those agreements are put into place for these other agencies like DOC and Guam Behavioral Wellness. Is it a board function or is it an administrative function?
Well, actually, when I got in 2018, the agreement with DOC and GMH was already established. There was even a time and point where, and they still are not current in their paying for services that we give them. But as a, you know, a government agency and the only public hospital, we still service them even without the payment. So that again goes back to our financial struggles is payment. We don't get the payment we, you know, rightfully should get for the services we give.
Right. Well, that's something that I've kept an eye on, and understanding that that Guam Memorial does not get, you know, paid on time, or, you know, whether it's insurance or especially for another government agency not to pay its bills is something that really needs to be pushed and looked into. So again, thank you for those answers. And again, you have my support, Sonia. Good luck to you. And thank you for stepping up to the plate.
Thank you. And I agree, we should help each other out. But we don't see, I understand that DOC has their struggles financially as well, but their struggles should not become our struggles or additional struggles for GMH. So I just hope that they somehow find budget to pay us for the services that were rendered so that we can meet our goals and take care of our hospital.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Moylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Sonia, for accepting the nomination. Congratulations for really willing to continue on with your service. It does take a lot of your time, and you obviously sound really interested and also experienced. And I think that's good that you decided to continue on with that experience. Your term is going to be longer than any of our senators here, at least because we're just a 2-year termer and you got 6. So I'm glad that you're going to continue that experience to help the hospital. I also I'm hoping that you would reach out to us and of course the 36th Guam legislature, and whatever you feel the hospital needs, and help direct. And if there's legislation that needs to be done, at least the 35th, I know we were focused on the hospital. That's a primary responsibility and a need for the community. So we want to, even though the money is not there, we want to put whatever resources we can into the hospital. So I'm glad you're continuing on, and I wish you the best. So thank you for your continued service. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator. Senator Castro, you are recognized. Can't hear you, Senator. Try again. I'm still not hearing you. Still can't hear you. I'm sorry, I'm gonna move forward to Senator Perez and we'll try again. Okay. Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hvac day, Sonia. I'm just really assured by all the answers that you've given today and your testimony, and that it shows your dedication, and not only that, the heart to make the changes that are needed for the hospital. And we definitely need somebody like that on the board, somebody that really wants to do good by the community. So, I appreciate your accepting the nomination to be on the board. I'm just also curious in regards to the strategic plan that you set forth. Has it changed much regarding the new circumstances with COVID? Do you see more of this collaboration happening amongst the different health facilities, and how maybe we can capitalize upon that?
Okay, so our strategic plan was vetted in 2019. However, we know that it's a working progress. We're trying to, now that we've experienced the pandemic, which we never thought would happen, moving forward, we can adjust our action plans to cover, a future pandemic, or, the lessons we're learning now, we can implement those in the next updates of the strategic plans. And the measurements that we will take, we can learn from this pandemic. But I know right now we've divided all the objectives to the subcommittees, and we are going to be thinking and considering the what to do's and not to do. And I just know that this group of trustees will deliver something that will impress you all, and really for the first time bring the hospital to a level where the people can be assured that they will be taken care of.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know these were very difficult times, and it's great to have people like you to kind of help guide it through. Just another thing about the finances. So, as you said, you guys have a lot of dreams about improving the hospital to make it more accessible to our people. If you could just share some of those ideas as far as how we're going to diversify or maybe shore up the financial capacity of the hospital, or some of the top 3 ideas that you guys might have.
So not to say too much, because I want that committee to be the one to divulge the information, but with Lillian and the new administration, they have been seeking grants. They've been pursuing monies owed, and they've been paying taxes owed down. I mean, our financial committee right now is chaired by someone in the finance sector, and so he's really on top of how do we tackle such a large debt, and how do we bring it. We'll probably never get it to 0, because needs, population grows, but we're tackling it piece by piece, and not just giving up on the whole, okay, we're doomed. If we have that kind of mentality, then yes, we will be doomed. So I know unless we win the lottery, we know that we're never going to get the money, full money that we want, but we're going to try to minimize or seek free money, if there's such a thing.
Right. Well, thank you for those answers, and I appreciate your commitment to serving another term on the board. So do it's Mossy, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We'll now recognize Senator Will Castro.
Let's give this another shot. Can you hear me? Does that work? Okay, awesome. Hvac, Sonia, thank you for accepting another appointment. I want to fully disclose, Madam Chair, that I actually hired Sonia when I was the director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, but by no means does that mean she's going to get off easy. As a matter of fact, since she decided to serve and continue in another administration, I have some very challenging questions. I'm just kidding, Sonia. I want to encourage you and thank you for agreeing to serve. For the record, Madam Chair, those who are not aware, Sonia has some experience in serving members of the armed services and law enforcement, emergency response. She's also very trustworthy and capable. As you can see, she's able to articulate some of the business of the board. And I couldn't affirm more strongly my support for her continued nomination and confirmation. She's also a compassionate member of this community, having given so much to the people of Guam through the Palauan community. So thank you. But now in your professional capacity, Sonia, as a board member, and I'm not gonna give you a hard time on this, but I do want to leave you with this, being that my tenure as a senator in the 35th will be coming to an end in January when the 36th legislature sits. Please keep in mind that the Hospital Management Advisory Team had published, and I think you were a big part of that, a consolidated report that included cost-cutting, cost containment measures. It also included some revenue enhancement strategies. And the reason why I bring this up for the public record, Sonia, as a board member, is because as we go through the process of scrutinizing the budget during next week's session, there's going to be some important questions about revenue in terms of how has the COVID situation affected the hospital's ability to recover monies. Remember, historically, over a period of time, the $30 million shortfall on average over the last 10 years has been created because of our clients' inability to pay, right? They're either underinsured or not insured at all. And so everybody who's been serving prior to COVID, specifically yourself, I think has a moral and professional obligation to be prepared to make your case to either cut costs or to put into motion those revenue enhancement strategies. I know I want to ask you at another time so that I don't put you on the spot, but I'd like to follow up with you on the status of the Z-Wing and what is the hospital's plan to address some of those inadequate facilities to provide specialized services, whether it's inpatient or outpatient care. I happen to have immersed myself in those conversations during the Calvo administration, and those questions have not gone away. And it's not a failure of Governor Calvo, and it's certainly not a failure of Governor Lulian-Grow either. This is a monumental task that even our good chairperson here, Senator Terlaje, and my colleagues look at and think about regularly. And so I look forward to you thinking innovatively. It's going to get tough, more tough for the people of Guam in the months ahead as the infusion of federal monies to alleviate the pressure of a collapsing economy around us fades away. And so please think about that, about how you're going to save the island and perhaps the region's only real first line of emergency defense, right? And saving lives. And so thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to encourage her and thank her for her service and encourage her to think about the hard questions that have been outlined in the HMAT, the Hospital Management Advisory Team's consolidated report. You have my support, Sonia. Thank you. And I'll send you the tough questions directly, but thank you for continuing to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Sonia, I think that report was just maybe a year before your time or just a little bit before your time on that board. But yeah, I think maybe you've discussed it in the board level or you had to make yourself familiar with that in order to move forward. Related to that is the very specific, related to the operations and the costs and how to manage that. You talked about, the plan is going to help bring in revenue, but as it is now, we all went through it, okay? We all had to live through this, the health emergency, the pressure on the hospital, the sudden changes in the hospital. And of course, there were complaints in the community about those changes. For example, the visiting policy, whether other employees in the hospital were being equally exposed or lesser exposed, you know, kind of that debate, right? To COVID, when it became the COVID hospital, and just those things. So, you know, the hospital administration made all those decisions itself. And I just want to know, what part did the board play in that? Were they active or inactive after the fact, or what would you say to the community about the board's role in the response to the pandemic and the changes that had to be made in hospital policy?
I would say honestly more reactive. We don't make so many decisions. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I don't know if the other trustees got the information and I didn't, but I usually get information after it's happened or after a decision has been made. And then at our meeting, they would recap everything that has been done. So it's not that I'm making a decision, I'm just hearing the decision that was made. And then if we see that, well, why wasn't this done? Then we can try to correct it, or moving forward, let's not let that happen again, you know. But I feel that a lot of times it'll be reactive. Just like this incident with the security guard, I have not heard anything personally or directly from anyone regarding the issue. I'm just reading it on the newspaper the same way everyone else is getting their information. But I also know that I don't 100%, I would say, you know, media, sometimes things are exaggerated or one-sided or two-sided maybe, but there's always that third story. And so I try not to judge too much on what I read or hear until I, you know, hear directly from the staff at the hospital or from Lillian. And but yes, most of the times it's a reaction.
What is your understanding of CMS's request of our hospital? What is their standard? What are they expecting of the board? Is this consistent or inconsistent?
Well, one of the things we were cited for is not having enough meetings or not. And so one of the projects that are tasks that we, as a governance, bylaws, and strategic plan committee, we updated the bylaws because we were also setting up ourselves for citations because our bylaws were outdated. So it was saying that we should meet every month. Knowing sometimes we can't make quorum, we don't meet every month. And so when we were cited, so we have to be smart. So now we say quarterly, not to say we're gonna meet quarterly because we know so much can happen in 3 weeks. But at least if we don't meet monthly, we won't be cited for it. And if we have something special that comes up, we can meet and have a special meeting. But those are just some of the things that we have made changes in, just because we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. And
all right,
you know, time and time again, nobody was addressing issues like that, whether they seem small or not. But
okay, did CMS ever cite the hospital's governance for not being part of decisions such as patient care decisions or billing decisions, or is that not an issue?
I have not seen any citations regarding the trustees not having that much say in what happens at the hospital. But we are an active body now. Sometimes you don't always hear that or see that because we're a surprise kind of group. We like to do things the hard way, but behind the scenes, and we want to our work to show for itself.
All right. Well, I do know that you have been meeting regularly, and that because my staff attends, and that yeah, you work on very many things. But what do you think going forward? There is even an allegation this morning on the radio that the hospital is not prepared for a surge in COVID. And I know you're alone to answer this, but you know, with all we've been through, though, what do you think as a board member? Are we prepared?
I believe the hospital is prepared. We have we have a designated COVID center. We have testings, we have equipment, we have PPEs, we have staff, and we want to keep our staff. You know, I know sometimes people condemn us for, say, giving the nurses a raise. Oh, you guys don't have the money and you give them a raise. But we want to keep staff. We want to keep qualified staff. And especially now during pandemic, we need the nurses. We need the bodies, or else we won't be able to help the people of Guam.
All right. Well, I'm sorry again, you're going to be the one to answer this, but this morning there was another allegation that GMH is hiring employees, non-nursing employees, and kind of just adding to its payroll in the middle of a pandemic. And I messaged Lillian about it, so she gave me an idea of the number of employees. But from a board perspective, how do you feel about that allegation?
So, I mean, allegations, right? Sometimes there's truth to them, sometimes not. I have not heard that about the new hiring. I know in our last board meeting, we did discuss getting the numbers of how many new hires we have, what are their positions, are they necessary? So we did ask that of the staff. But as far as hiring, the trustees do not get involved in hiring. The only people we hire are the doctors. We review, it goes to the Human Resources Committee. That subcommittee vets the information, and then it's brought up to the board at our meeting. And we just, this doctor has met all the qualifications, all the requirements, and then we vote on okay. But it goes to subcommittee. As far as like what staff comes into the hospital, we have no participation in hiring.
Okay, but I hope that you can keep an eye, and based on these allegations, and in the past, these were the big allegations, and so I would just like, the board to be savvy enough to keep a handle on the big picture, right? If we're having a hard time and, finance-wise, is our hiring under control? Like you said, are these critical positions? Are they not, especially knowing our circumstances today? But otherwise, I very much appreciate your answers today, your willingness to be forthright. I appreciate that. And your service, of course. I've seen these hospital meetings, they take hours. They're not quick meetings, and the work that the subcommittees do is very detailed, and I very much appreciate that. I think the real meat of the board work is in those subcommittees. So I thank you for all that work. And so I wish you the best in this service. If there's anything that we can help you with as senators, or or policy you think needs to be changed, please, I want you to let us know as soon as you can. Then we're here, we're willing to help you. And otherwise, I'm going to thank you. And so thanks again to Mallory for the testimony, and the others who submitted written testimony. And thank you, Sonia. And we're going to call this confirmation hearing has been duly heard, and it's 1:59 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to the second item on our agenda, which is the appointment of Edwin J.C. Regis as the planning alternate representative to the Guam Historic Preservation Review Board. He's been appointed for a term length of 4 years from March 21, 2020 to March 20, 2024. The Historic Preservation Review Board has the duty to enter historic properties into the Guam Register of Historic Places, evaluate nominating properties to the National Register of Historic Places, review the Guam Survey of Guam Historic Properties, the content of the Guam Comprehensive Preservation Plan, serve as Board of Directors to the Guam Preservation Trust Fund, serve as the State Historic Review Board for the National Historic Preservation Act, And of course, that's just an outline, but everything that fills those duties in, there's a lot of work for this board, particularly now while there are so many projects that are ongoing that require the very diligent review of the Preservation Review Board and the very calculated and measured response by the Preservation Trust and use of our funds in a fiduciary capacity. So for the record, we have received written testimony in support of the nomination of Edwin B.C. Regis from Mr. Joe Kanata, who's the Chief Program Officer of the Guam Preservation Trust. Mr. Regis, I see you there. Thank you so much for being here and for accepting this nomination. Do you have any, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna, if you have any comments or testimony that you'd like to present, the floor is yours right now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Honorable Madam Chair and honorable members of the Mina 35 Legislature in Guam. So I don't have any written testimony, but I'm here to express my commitment to the Guam Preservation Trust and to see how I can serve in a role in the Guam Historic Preservation Review Board as the planning alternative. It's great to see that the Trust has a 5-year strategic plan, and I want to see how I can contribute to the planning initiatives and how they protect our history and the rich character of our village. I think the cultural district areas needs to be established, and in terms of landscape and how do we integrate the connectedness of that landscape. So I view that history is more than just artifacts, but how our people use our space and how the environment and our land and sea contribute to that understanding and that connection to our space. It's good to see that they have, again, the strategic plan and the 7 pillars within that plan, I think are solid. There's a lot of attention to outreach and education. I hope I can contribute to the pillar on policy and planning. My management approach to kind of jumping into this committee is to, assess the current matters and contrast that with what are the actions in the strategic plan, as well as to address any actions or items that are necessary to achieve the plan or adapt as necessary. So with that, I don't have, again, any written testimony, but look forward to answering any questions you may have of me.
Thank you, Mr. Regis. Edwin, I know you from your work at the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and so I appreciate your perspective coming onto the board, your strategy to compare the plan that is in place with the actual actions. I very much appreciate that. I'm going to ask you a couple questions just to flesh that out just a little bit. First of all, do you have any potential conflicts of interest that might affect your ability to serve on this board?
No, ma'am.
Do you receive any grants from the board? The Preservation Trust gives out grants. Do you receive any of those?
No grants. All
right. Do you, how will you balance your current responsibilities as a coastal program administrator with Noaa, the Office of Coastal Management Cooperative Agreement through Bbmr, with the duties required of this board position?
Yeah, that's, well, the short answer is time management, but both of these tasks are tremendous responsibility. Of course, to work with the Coastal Management Program based on our mandates and authorities to kind of create this utopic Guam of sustainable resources, an environment that's healthy, an environment that is natural, the environment that has pristine and natural serene charm. That's a very difficult challenge for the Bureau. So if you look at what we're charged to do, that's a very tough task. But what we implement or what we do is try to take on the projects that we can make a difference. And so we look at prioritizing our issues, then developing the work strategy to address what we can. And so in relation to how that's going to affect my ability to contribute to the Preservation Trust, I'll try to align what I can in terms of looking at the historic perspectives and the planning aspects of the Guam Preservation Trust, and if I can align that with the local planning initiatives under the Bureau. I think that would be one way to leverage resources and leverage time.
All right. I know also from your work with the, is it called the consistency reviews that you do and you are very active in, and I'm very grateful for, that you're very familiar with federal law and that, you know, how to work with those federal laws and how to make sure that we are in compliance, how to work around them if you have to, how to get help where you need it. That I have some confidence that you're going to be able to do. And it's a very similar position. The preservation, you know, we're dealing with federal laws a lot of the time, federal grants a lot of the time, and federal programs that we are almost, those are, for example, the build-up projects, you know, those are what we're reviewing. So very, very similar. And I hope that you might actually be able to assist in that, in those efforts. This preservation, you know, the preservation office is very small. So the staff is small. You're a board member, so you're not a paid staff, but I'm hoping that you might be able to help the staff as a board member, as opposed to just you know, if you can, yeah. What about transparency as a board? I don't think that this board has any complaints about hiding information, but I think the public is really craving for a lot more information for the Preservation Review Board. Now, the Guam Preservation Trust, I mean, part of its goal is, you know, to do public events and things like that, and I think they're doing a good job. But the Preservation Review Board, when it comes to review and compliance and the enforcement, that regulatory arm, you know, I think the public is craving for a little more information. Do you think you'll be able to contribute in that regard or help them?
So one of the initiatives that I want to see if we can kind of strengthen the planning controls is their village district plans. And so there's a historic Inalahan plan, and then there's another plan that they're starting up in Humatan. And while these are community plans, the one thing that it lacks is enforcement. And so the mechanisms to be able to get that to be enforceable can rest in the adoption of those plans as elements of the comprehensive development plan. If it's successful in being adopted through that mechanism or some other statute, then what that does is it'll drive the regulatory process to ensure that as development is occurring, or as people are using their properties, or as any activities occurring in the village that would either conflict or be compatible with these district plans, that is continually being monitored. So if we can elevate those community plans to have more of a statutory, have some kind of enforcement, I think that would be a good step in ensuring that that people know about the plan. It'll certainly elevate the profile of the plan, because now this is not a document that people will stumble upon by accident, but more will have to review as part of their development choices in their community engagement. So housing, subdivision, specific commercial developments, all those would then have some kind of nexus into what are the policies and standards in these community plans that the trust is going to put forward and adopt. If we don't get it, if we don't strengthen and insert these plans as an authority, as some kind of authoritative in an authoritative process, then a lot of times we're really at the will of the owner. If we're just asking them to do it, this is a nice thing to do. And usually, the drivers for the individual property owner will kind of dictate what they want to do.
All right. What about as a Preservation Review Board member, do you think you'd be able, what is your position on protecting in place historical sites and resources? And I'm not sure if you've seen in the news, but these are some of the things that, we're going back and forth on, whether these can be, the goal was supposed to be to preserve in place, but currently the project managers, the developers, the Department of Defense are saying not possible. And but I'm yeah, I want to know if you think as a board member, you'd be able to change that not possible to more possible, or, you know, if you have any idea, any thoughts in that regard.
I can certainly say that I support the intent to recognize the value of in-place artifacts. I think that, you know, coming across a undisturbed site it has such an intrinsic value. You know, you can't put a value on that. But how to go about recognizing that within the federal statutes and within this programmatic agreement that is that's in place, I would have to look at what the regulation is and also involve you know, professionals from the field, whether it's legal counsel, the Attorney General's office, or other professionals, to look at what is the framework for kind of defining those standards. And so I look forward to that research and that investigation, and hopefully I can come back and present you know, what we found.
All right, and the review board has a special role. I mean, in some of these agreements that are made, or the trust, you know, it's a dual role board, but for example, the Guam Preservation Trust is the current party to the programmatic agreements that have been put in place with the Department of Defense. And as a party, do you feel like you'd be able or free to negotiate on behalf of the people of Guam to, you know, preserve in place or avoid the data recovery of these significant places, cultural sites?
I think absolutely. I think if one of the board's responsibility is to advise the SHPO office in as they develop the programmatic agreement, I certainly think that's an area that we need to really spend a lot of attention and provide detail in terms of the value of you know, keeping these things in place. And that's a starting point. So I can certainly see the value in it, and I would support that.
All right, thank you, Edwin. I'm going to open it up now to my colleagues with the co-chair, Senator Paris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Edwin, and thank you for accepting the nomination. So yes, I like to concur that, you know, your background in planning is definitely a bonus to serving on the Guam Historic Preservation Board. Earlier, you mentioned something about cultural districts. So how do you envision promoting this idea, or perhaps developing this idea further as a board member?
So I think a good starting point is to, you know, aside from the regulatory processes of ensuring that the policies and the planning controls are in place, I think it's looking at the dynamics of the village and what are some of the attractiveness and the inherent things that the village is known for, or that can bring forth that people can enjoy. So a good example would be the village of Inalahan, where you see the village experience some decrease in population, but there was a time where that village was very robust and really a vibrant place, a vibrant village. And so for that to come back is going to take you know, people to come back to it. And so if people are able to come back to it, there's got to be the interest and some kind of motivation for that to happen. So I think by opening it up to you know, potential tourism opportunities, that could be one way to drive some people back to the village. I know that there was some discussion with GBB about villas that they wanted to invest in. So it would be a compilation of different tasks that would really work towards the vibrancy, building the vibrancy of the village. So it's making sure that streets are walkable, that there's things for people to do within walking distance, that there's activities for them to partake in. So you see this real connectiveness within the village that would then produce this really amazing spirit that the village would have.
Okay, thank you. So just yesterday, we were in a programmatic agreement meeting in regards to, this, some of the military developments that are impacting a lot of our historic sites. What role do you see the Guam Historic Preservation Board have perhaps in, I guess, what do you see their involvement with the PA process?
I'm not familiar with the programmatic agreement process with the work that I do. We're left out of those meetings. So all I can do is commit to understanding what the programmatic agreement process is like, and then ensuring that the goals and the aspirations of the trusts and the board as mandated by law is upheld to its highest standard.
Okay, and so when we're talking about historic sites, Guam historic sites, what is your position when it comes to military projects?
That's it's still a very broad question, and I would need to again assess what the specifics are in each of the archaeological sites. What are the intentions of the sites? What's the project scope? What's the historical dialogue? What's the legal constraints? So that's my approach. That would be my approach to dealing with that.
Okay, and in regards to mitigation, what are your thoughts about mitigation, compensatory mitigation?
I think compensatory mitigation is a useful tool. I think if we went and moved towards developing a compensatory mitigation bank for both historic and environment, that could be a positive thing. I would be concerned about the operational costs with putting up a compensatory mitigation bank, just because that could really eat into the credits that are deposited into the bank. But certainly I think that's a valuable instrument to be able to offset some of the damages that are done, so then we can have resources to build or create other historic places or invest in other historic places as a result of the damage being done.
Yeah, I think that question's kind of aligned with preservation in place. I think ultimately, ideally, the law is basically preservation over mitigation, right? That's really what the mandate I feel of this law is. So yeah, I guess it's tied into that question. I think, yeah, for now, I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Taitigui, you are recognized.
Sujus Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And a lot of the questions were asked, but I had the great opportunity to my colleagues to work with Edwin when I was working at GITA, and we were doing a map, one Guam map. And if there's anyone with the experience and definitely can pinpoint where things are on the island, it's this guy. He can do it even by his phone or anything that, he's a very resourceful individual, but very smart too. He knows his stuff. So I'm really happy that you decided to work in this area, Edwin, and congratulations on your appointment. Yes, it's a lot of work, and you're one of those workaholic kind of guys, but I like your answer when the good chairman asks how you're going to be able to do this, and time management is a perfect answer. And I know you do that very well too. Your knowledge on technology is tremendous, and what better place than to help out the Historical Preservation Trust board and this agency to bring that into fruition, to allow them to be more accurate, as well as finding resources, because one of the biggest things is, of course, is donations, and money that through grants. And again, my colleagues, this guy, if there's money to be found, he knows where to find it. If I needed to find a grant, this is your man. He knows exactly where to find for grants. So, I mean, most of my things were just commenting on your ability to do the job. So everyone can tell now I have great confidence that the board is gaining somebody with a wealth of knowledge, and definitely not only that, but ideas as well to help out the agency. I thank you so much, Edwin. I mean, you could be doing so much more things anywhere you want, you know, have the choice, the pick of the litter. But I'm really happy that you decided to serve on this particular board, especially what we're going through right now. You know, with please school yourself on the problematic agreement and what's coming up forward. You know, any changes to it. The 4 pillars. We've talked about the 4 pillars, and also one of the other projects is, you know, to actually find out what is owned by the federal government and what does the government of Guam own. And you and I both went down that road to try and find out where is the boundary line. You know, the federal government is saying 1 square footage or miles amount of land that they own, but the government of Guam is saying a different number. And when I left, that's where we were, trying to find out who owns what. So I know it's a little bit out of the preservation, but I know it'll come back when you need to get that information to say, no, this is government of Guam's property. You know, you have no say on this piece of property. So I know you're the man to make sure they cross their T's and dot their I's on everything that's pertaining to preserving our historical landmark on this island. So thank you, Edwin. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your confidence, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Edwin, what makes you want to serve on this board? It does seem to have some overlapping, you know, interests with your current work, but what really motivates you to serve on this board?
So I think the notion that planning can make a difference is one of the primary drivers. And I really want to look at that and see if we can institutionalize the plans that come out of this. As a state level planner, that's really what the coastal program is. It's, you know, really good that we can come up with a comprehensive development plan for the state level. But what really is going to drive the success of those plans are these different district plans or community plans that are developed and empowered. So I'm hoping that through the Guam Preservation Trust that we can build on their leadership, and they're the forerunners in creating these district plans that look at historical elements as the centerpiece for their planning purpose, and solidify that and make it create a construct where the community themselves can be the ones to make sure that's in force. So I think this is going to be a good chance to give community planning the best shot it has in being realized. And we're hoping that we can do that within the context of historic preservation.
All right, what about disagreement with other board members as to policy? You know, I think we're entering a time where not everybody is in alignment on some of these things. And I just want to know if you have the willingness to, I'm sure you have the ability, but do you have the willingness to you know, go on your own, speak out about these things? Is there any kind of relationship or connections that you have that's going to inhibit your ability to do that?
I think people who know me know that I'll always speak my mind, regardless of whatever the situation is. So whether it's I'm in DC speaking on behalf of Guam to Noaa, or whether it's in the region, I have no problems with ensuring that my thoughts and what I'm charged to express are genuine and my own.
Right. We just received a record of decision today on the Mariana Islands training and testing area expansion. And so they've approved the Department of Defense's increased training activity, including sonar use, and testing activity, including detonations, for our oceans, as you know, because I know you've reviewed these as well. And forthcoming, or immediately forthcoming, we were told yesterday, they intend to resume negotiations for the programmatic agreement to cover historic properties that might be affected by this increased training and testing. So if you are confirmed to this board, and I know you're an alternate member, but I expect that you will still be active, and I think I've seen alternate members attend all of the meetings. I mean, if it's very much open to them. I'm hoping that you will be able to help the board, help us, the people of Guam, to negotiate a better programmatic agreement than what we entered into, in the past. And we've learned so much from these past agreements. So I want to build on that knowledge, and I don't want to be made a fool twice. I want improvement. So I'm hoping that we can count on you for that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on that is that we have to take a proactive approach to inserting ourselves into the planning processes for the MIT or whatever the activities are for future programmatic agreements. This has to be a process where we are involved early, and that we have continual input, and we have continual engagement with the military on these matters. If you kind of consider, like through federal consistency, how this typically happens, which we really have to move away from, and I really can appreciate your stance on wanting us to be more engaged, is that normally the military will go through their supplemental environmental impact statements and all the different environmental checklists to comply with NEPA. At some point, this is then dropped onto the agency's lap, who really is not anticipating it. We may have some wind that is coming down the pipes, but realistically, we're already working with the different backlog of different projects that are coming up, whether it's federal consistency or permitting applications, or the day-to-day management of different activities that our office is authorized to do. So that speaks to projects within DLM, EPA, agriculture, us here at BSP. Then they drop this document on us, and we're like, oh, wow, we have 60 days to review this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think that's not a smart way forward. And what I want to see happen with the MIT is to be integrated within the planning processes as they update reports, as they provide their data from a specific action, or as they discover that the action that they propose is changing. So this is going to take a commitment from the government of Guam to kind of go shoulder to shoulder with the hip to hip with the Navy and their environmental folks through a continual engagement process. So that way we all understand what are the planning systems, and then contribute and be aware of what are some of the issues before they're even brought up.
Appreciate that, Edwin. Thank you very much for that answer. Senator Taitukui or Senator Perez, do you have any other additional questions? Senator Taitukui? Senator Perez? All right. Then thank you very much, Edwin. We are going to consider your nomination to the Guam Historic Preservation Review Board heard. It is 2:29 p.m. Sizus Maasi again for your willingness to serve on this.
Okay, adios, thank you.
Adios. All right, we are now going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Thank you, senators, again for bearing with us. And we are on the reappointments of 3 members to the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. First one is Anita F. Orlino. Anita, can you just wave your hand, because I understand on YouTube, on TV, it's sometimes hard to see where you are. Okay, so that's Anita Orlino. Thank you, Anita. Maria G. Cruz. Oh, Maria, I think it's not on right now. We might have to reschedule her if she's not able to get back on. And so Mr. Ronald F. Eclavea. Mr. Eclavea, can you wave your hand a little bit so people can see you? Thanks. All right. The Commission to Establish Ancestral Lands laid out several duties, and these are all fiduciary duties on behalf of ancestral landowners. One is to establish a original landowners registry. One is to establish an excess lands registry, a claims registry, a conditional awards registry, an ancestral title registry. Some of the duties of the commission, in addition to establishing those registries, is to investigate, record, file, report, and respond to requests by ancestral land claimants for remedy, including government of Guam, whose land was taken by the United States or by the government of Guam on or after January 1, 1930. Remedy includes just compensation, which for purposes of this chapter is defined as limited to the return of land or access to landlocked lots across public lands, if public lands block access to private property. The commission shall establish, in accordance with the administrative adjudication law, procedures for extinguishment of claims, award of just compensation, and recordation of ancestral land title, as well as other rules and regs. Now we know that the Ancestral Lands Commission is currently also managing property that is in its inventory right now, that is not envisioned to be returned to ancestral landowners, but it's supposed to be managed for their benefit. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But so we'll begin with the nomination of Anita Orlino. Ms. Orlino, this is, I want to thank you again for accepting this reappointment to the board. You've been reappointed to serve for 4 years, beginning March 27, 2020 to March 26, 2024. And if you have some testimony that you would like to provide, you may do so at this time. Ms. Orlino, if you can, Ms. Orlino, if you could unmute yourself, yeah, and then we will. And state your name for the record, please.
Anita F. Orlino, and I'd like to thank you for the confidence and the nomination for the Guam Ancestral Land Commission as a board member.
Thank you. Can you tell us maybe what has been your experience as a board member? What do you believe you've been able to accomplish as a board member, and why should we reappoint you? Why should we confirm the reappointment?
For the reappointment, I believe that with this Guam Ancestral Land Commission, it's a very sensitive issue, and these are the properties that belongs to our ancestors, and it is my belief that, you know, it should continue on to right the wrong and to put this ancestral land back to the rightful owner. And that is very, very, in my heart, I'm very passionate about that, especially those looking in and just saying, when would it come back? So I believe that that is my goal.
All right, thank you. Senator Taitigui, did you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And thank you, Anita, for continuing on and serving. How are you? I've known Anita for, it's good to see you. Yeah. And I just wanted to thank you for all the hard work you've done in the past and willing to continue on and serving. You have a wealth of knowledge as well, you know, and it's good to keep that consistency, and I appreciate it. So I really don't have any questions at this time. And Madam Chair, if I may, I fully support Anita's nomination, as well as Mr. Eclavea, Ron Eclavea. Thank you again, Ron, for, I have to go to another meeting, but I will definitely review the tape to see if there's anything that you said that I didn't like. I doubt it, though.
Okay.
But I tell you, anytime I need any questions asked, Ron answers his phone. He tells me what's going on. So it's nice to have someone I can just call on the phone and find out what's going on. That's Mary in the background. Hey, Mary, your wife. I see her in the back. Okay. And I thank you, Mary, for allowing him to serve on this board again. I know it takes up a lot of this time, but I really appreciate the support that you're giving your husband to continue to serve as well. It's important to have family to back you up on this. And I know they're both of your spouses are very supportive of your work. So please continue on. And thank you again, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And good luck to you. Have my support.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perez.
Yes, hi, Madam Chair, thank you. And hello to Anita. This is my first time meeting you. So just if you can give me a little bit of background, how long have you been serving on the Ancestral Lands Commission?
Well, I've been there for well over 10 years since the onset. Back in, I've been following it because I'm also an ancestral landowner. I'm heir to certain property. And when it was first born back in 1999, I followed it through. And then also from DCC back to government, you know. So I like to see it through. Okay. And I'm very, very honored that, you know, I would be serving again so that we could, like I said, we would like to right the wrong and get it on the ball so that the landowners could benefit from their land.
Okay, that's great to hear. You have the dedication and the tenacity to see this through. In regards to, you know, you must have seen a lot through the 10 years that you must have seen a lot through the 10 years that you were there. I mean, how have things, has it gotten easier through the years, or what were some of the lessons learned, or if you can share some of those experiences in regards to resolving or at least getting land back to the original landowners. Was there some things that you would like to share as far as, you know, or maybe some of your accomplishments that you felt was, you know, important?
First and foremost, it gets easier each time to do like a title hearing and then do the getting the people to come in and apply to submit their application. The only little roadblock is when we cannot find landowners to, you know, tell them to come in and submit an application. That's the hardest part there, because from my understanding, most of them, like, they relocated and they don't know what's going on here. So what we try to do is try to send it out on social media or do the mayor's office posting, trying to let them come in so that they could submit an application so that we could start moving and do like title hearing and everything. That's the roadblock there. We cannot locate this landowner. Other than that, it gets easier each time, and it's very heartwarming when you see the landowner smiling.
Okay. In regards to working with the other board members, do you, how do you resolve, if there are any issues that come up, how are they resolved typically? You know, let's say there's perhaps not a disagreement, but you don't see things, the same way, I suppose. How was that resolved amongst the board members?
Well, yes, we do sometimes lock horns, but at the end of the day, we all hold hands because knowingly that we're there for that purpose, then we'll take a break and then we just look at each other and say, hey, we're here for the landowners, not for ourselves. So, you know, we have to work hand in hand. Let's work together and not against each other. And we usually feel we're good. We have real good working board members.
Okay. What are your thoughts about the Ancestral Lands Commission being an autonomous agency? What are your thoughts about that?
It could work both ways. We, you know, especially if they're gonna do the same thing, especially with this the land bank. And if it's gonna work for the people and we could give some, for me, it could work both ways.
Okay. All right. I think that's all my questions for now. So, but thank you. It's nice to meet you.
You
Anita.
too. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anita, I want to recognize, I think the director, the acting director, Birch, is he present today?
Yes.
Acting Director, I want to thank you for being here with us today and for your assistance in this hearing and for the letter that you sent to my office preceding the hearing regarding the budget of the ancestral lands. So just to update everybody, when the acting director came in for the budget hearing, we pretty much put that on hold because he wanted to go back to Bbmr and revise some of the numbers. And so we have that. And I haven't had the chance to look at it very closely, but it looks like you had some clarification from Bbmr that you are not able to use certain revenue, the special funds revenue for operations, or?
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
Senator. And that's how come I believe that Bbmr, they said that they will include in the budget law when they submit this, the budget to the committee of the whole, a request to use 50% of the AT&T lease. And the instructions were to place the AT&T settlement funds and old leases collected through this fiscal year into the land bank. And that's the way the budget analysts see it and auditors that I spoke to. And although we do have our attorney, Nick Tuff, who disagrees, I tend to side with the budget analysts and the auditors, because they'll be the ones coming in a month or two to audit us again. And I want to make sure that we have a clean audit as best I can. So we're still setting up our offices. Hopefully September or maybe early October, we'll have it on the 3rd floor. Right now, Mr. Terlaje and I are on the 7th floor in our temporary office within Department of Land Management. And we're still getting things together, but we've got all the financials down. And as soon as we get a commission, we'll be able to fix the AT&T issue. And we'll also be able to have access to our funds in Coast 360. Because until we get a commission, a quorum of a commission, then I will not, and the commissioner will not have any access to it. We need the new signatories. So that's a major issue.
Okay, can you update us on the last time we had a confirmation hearing
Yes.
for one member? I was told she's the only member now on the board. Is that correct?
No, we have 2, Luisa Wesley
Yes.
and Angie Camacho.
Okay,
So I
so
would have 4, I need 4 for operations. So with Mr. Cordea and Mrs. Orlino, that would give me opportunity to work on that. But to do any land leases, I would need 5.
okay, appreciate that
So,
input. Thank
yes,
you.
and so if you would get them confirmed before the end of the fiscal year, I could clear things up before the next audit. I would like to come out with a clean audit.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. I'm going to allow now Mr. Eclavea to give some testimony. Before I ask any additional questions, I'd like you to give your testimony, and then we might get into a little bit of these items. Thank you. Mr. Eclavea.
Yes, buenas, senators. How are you? Considering our restrictions we have with the COVID, this is my actually first time on a Zoom call, a video call, but it's pretty interesting. I've been on audio calls before, but this is pretty cool. Anyway, 20 years, close to 20 years we've been on the board. So it's not without our, controversies, but, we've made some mistakes. But I think we're overcome those mistakes. We just got to deal with it. And it's very trying, but I think now we're on smooth sailing. We want to follow the mandates of the enabling legislation, basically to follow it to the T, and the will of the people, and basically to serve in the highest capacity we're able to, to perform, basically to make prudent decisions and with our fiduciary duties to the trust, and to be, faithful to those duties. So I appreciate the privilege and honor to be reappointed.
Do you feel that the board is able to accomplish its mandates? I know we've had, I mean, it's very perplexing that we went down to a total, not even a quorum left on the board, but in normal operations, do you feel that it's able, like the enabling statutes are allowing you to function as necessary?
Well, I think what's probably still legal in the enabling statute, because we have some legal issues about, as you know, Senator, the rules and regs. So, but I think as far as our duties to return excess federal lands to the original landowners, I don't think we will have any hindrance there regarding this the issues. But but how the beneficiaries are going to receive those, those funds that we generate through these crown lands, that's a different matter that we got to resolve with the legislature, of course. But we're on the right track.
Okay, great. What about Ms. Orlino and Mr. Acavea? Tell me from each of you what you feel you've accomplished. I mean, let's brag a little about this ancestral lands. Do you think if you think it's been successful? So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, I'll go ahead first if it's okay.
Sure.
Basically, I think we've really accomplished majority of returning the excess federal lands in our inventory. Now it's just a matter of finding and locating those landowners that have not come in and make claims. We still have some properties to give out. I don't think they're that much, but we still have some to give out. We got to locate them. So as far as our mandate to return the lands, we're at a snail's pace now, because before we were inundated with hearings, and now we barely have any hearings. We could go 5-6 months without a land hearing to return lands. But now we're just trying to generate revenue to the generate revenue to our leases and to our crown lands, and bring revenue to the trust for those who are not going to receive their lands back.
All right, Ms. Orlino, do you believe we could do better in regards to the original mission, getting the land claimants to come in, as you said earlier, or dealing with their claims? Or do you feel like those have been pretty much accomplished up to them?
It's only a few, and we're gonna try to work as hard as we could. We need to do exhaust all means to get their attention, even if we pass it on, asking people, because it is very important, because there's only a few left. All the others that we've worked so hard to give them back, but these are the ones that we need to come out and reach to them, and we'll exhaust all means this time around. We need to, because it is very, very important that we also give those compensation who will, never realize their land back, not return. But there's others that are out there who could be returned, then it'll be a blessing if we could reach to them.
All right, there was a list of properties developed years ago when the Department of Defense, was talking again about the one Guam approach, and they made a list of properties that for potential return. And has the Ancestral Lands Commission reviewed that at all, or had any input?
Well, we've been following up, and it's just a matter of time when, we try to get, because we're concentrating right now, the rules and regs will set the time for those things, and we really need it, and I think it's on its way.
Yeah. Yes, Senator, we should have it ready. Nick Tuff has worked on some language to adjust the Enabling Act. If you'd like us to send it over to your office, I can have that out.
But I think you're talking about a different topic. You're talking about rules and regulations for use of the revenue?
Oh, so you're talking about the properties that we did get a list from Gita that I was going over about properties that in the federal inventory that may be returned.
Yeah.
I just got a copy of this the other day, and I've been reading through it. I'll provide Mr. Lino with it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And,
Yeah, what I wanted to know was these commissioners who've been on the commission for almost 20 years, yeah, what have they, you know, we've been following this for many years now, I think at least 10. And just wanted to know if you had any input as to any properties for return or.
Actually, we had hints of it from Gita, but like, I think the acting director said he just got that list, and we got hints from Gita that there's some movement about some potentially returnable lands, but we never got any more information than that.
All right. Okay, but there was a list created years ago. So you're saying the commission had no input in the list that was created years ago? Maybe
For
10
potential
years.
return, you mean? For potential return from the military?
Yes.
I don't, we're always trying to get any lands from the military. We're always active in pursuing getting all the lands back. But as far as the, but as far as that information you're talking about,
so how are you active? That's what I'm asking. How are you active in pursuing that?
You see, the report on this potentially releasable federal lands just came out on July 2019.
Right. I'm not talking about that. I just want to know if you find it, you know, if the board finds any part of its duties to pursue that type of thing, or to
maybe it's implied, something like that. We are, you know, I think maybe it's implied. I don't see it in the enabling legislation, but we, of course, we are. We've been pursuing. We've been requesting from the director and we've been pursuing. We've been pursuing even to the Congress, to Congress, our representative, whoever was in it. That we've actually been requesting to see if they can assist in further, you know, acquisitions of those properties that are even non-excess properties. Right. Those that are deemed excess and non-excess. Yes, we've been very active in it, constantly trying to get updates on the returns of these lands.
Okay, how will you can you just describe what is the impediment for the remaining land that you need to find the landowners, I guess? What are the records not available? Are they not clear, or we're not able to contact the heirs? What exactly is
the way it seems to me is that a lot of them don't. We don't have the resources to try to. What we've done is we've went through social media and through you know, newspapers, and we put out ads, and we did get some responses. So I think we can continue in that manner. But a lot of these, some of these landowners we've gotten in, they didn't realize they had lands. So I think a lot of these remaining lands, I think either they are naive to the process and maybe they just don't want to go through it, or it's a process. It's tough. I don't see why people don't want to come in and just, you know, make claims for their land and get it back. But we're seeing that we're making some progress, maybe not as much, but I think the most we can do is continue to try to reach out to people, social media, advertisements, our website, and try to find these people that own these lands. I just don't know why that they're not coming through. I wish I could give you an answer to it that, oh, you know, I don't.
I understand. Okay, what about, okay, so let's talk now about the other lands in your inventory. I think some of them are crown lands. And so we know about, well, you can tell us about the AT&T lease. Just tell us from your perspective as board members, how do you feel about handling these crown lands? Do you feel like you're able to do that you're able to pursue what you need to pursue according to your legislation, that you think, I know that there have been some recommendations to change the law so that it's very clear who the beneficiaries are, what percentage that might, you know, they each would be, that type of thing. Is this in for forever, you know, or does it ever end? What's the value? That type of thing. But you know, without getting into that, just in general, as a board member, do you feel like the board, this is something the board is going to be able to handle, to manage the land, in other words? Do you think we need additional expertise, or do you think this is, we're set up appropriately at this point? Mr. Escovea, can you give us an idea how much land is in that category?
I know that we have about maybe about 400 up in Finagayan. There's another 300 in the back road. We have about maybe about 1,500 to 2,000 acres, I would think. You know, don't quote me on that. I think that if we work with you, if we work with the legislature, I think we could solve the issues at hand right now, as far as finding out just exactly who the beneficiaries are, how they're going to get just compensation, whether it's going to be extinguished, how we're going to extinguish it, or whether it's going to be perpetual. Because there is an issue with appraisals of land on base, and I brought in professional organizations, the appraisal companies, and they were all just dumbfounded. They couldn't do it, and we were stuck. How are you going to extinguish someone's claim without having a firm number? So we were banging, and you know, with regard to your question about the senator's question about how do we resolve issues? Yeah, sometimes it turns into a shouting match. then we get our heads back together, and like you know, we've taken apart the whole enabling legislation all over. So I don't think there's anybody that's well, there might be, I guess, that can come in, but I think with the legislature, I think we could easily come to a solution with how we're going to resolve the situation so that everybody's happy.
All right. It does sound to me like it is, it's due time. It's going to be another one of these big policy implementations that was not totally foreseen. And I think we need to get consensus on it. So this is the beginning. Yeah, we're
Senator, for years, we've been wrangling our heads over the rules and regs.
Yes.
And come to find out, after so many years, it's not enforceable. I mean, we were trying to get, you know, legal counsel and everybody to input. Are we just banging or wasting? Well, we were stuck. So we had to make do with what we had with it. And then when we finished it, it wasn't legal.
Yeah.
It wasn't legal. Now it's in your court.
Yeah, from what I've seen, and of course, this is the first time I'm chairing this committee as a senator, but from what I've seen over the years, the commission's worked very hard, very diligent in getting the claims extinguished. But on this issue, they've also worked very hard, as you said, developing rules and regs, trying to implement things, even brought to court, I think. But yes.
Many times, and we're still in court.
Right, and
say
so,
also that board members, all of the board members, their heart and their desires are unmatched. Seriously, we've worked for over 10 years without stipends. That's how dedicated this. You know, when we had the budget crisis, so all of the previous board members and the existing board members are, as far as their dedication, there's no question about it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any idea? Let's say the board decides. You know, for me, there's several ways we can go, right, as to extinguishing these other claims without the ones that they're not going to get just for the public. So we're talking about ancestral landowners who are not going to get their properties returned to them, but because the government of Guam has decided to keep those properties in public use. For example, the airport, right? And maybe you can give us some other examples, Ms. Arlino, of that type of property that we've kept when these ancestral landowners have continued claims. What are other examples of that?
With the Crown lands right now, with our land bank, what we're trying to look is just compensation, and that's why we're trying to get this remaining, if not like 2,600 acres left, try to work with it we manage it, we lease it out to the highest and best use. In that case, we could compensate the other landowners who, one way or another, would never realize their land back. So we have to work with that. That's why we're struggling right now to get this rules unread so that we could start compensating those people, because it's taking too long already. And with all this land, the crown lands, leases and everything, maybe we could really work out and see how we can compensate them, those that would not realize their land back, unlike the others that are enjoying it right now. We look at them, because there's two classes, one that have been returned, and then the second one is the ones that would not realize due to the fact that either the U.S. government has killed it or the government of Guam, they're still using it. So we have to do the highest and best use for this land to lease it out so that we could get all those funds coming in, and then we could work from there with the rules and regs to compensate them.
Okay, can we talk about, so one of these lands is the lands that's being leased to AT&T, right?
Okay.
And so we saw in the news that recently there was a settlement with AT&T for fees or rental that was not paid for several years. And so this is seems to be resolved now, and you're supposed to be receiving income. But you know, there was an audit by OPA in it looks like FY 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So they said that your revenue, they state your revenues, of course, and that in FY 18, there was an increase due to base lease rental resulting from the settlement agreement with AT&T. The audit also reports an increase in expenditures by $900,000, due mainly to increase of $725,000, or a 712% increase in management fees incurred by Guam Ancestral Land Commission for GIDA services, the Guam Economic Development Authority.
Right.
GIDA's increased fees pertain to AT&T lease payments, and in your 2006 memorandum with GIDA, it looks like that's when that percentage was agreed to.
Right.
So according to the audit, the commission was to reevaluate GIDA's role relative to its property management services on Ancestral Lands Commission leased properties. That was the recommendation of the auditor at that time. Can you tell me what the status of this renegotiation of the GIDA management fees is at this point?
You know, on a month-to-month basis, we'll come back to AT&T, the money. We do have it in our account already throughout well over 4 million, and GIDA right now with charges 14%. So if you look at the money from AT&T, it's more like 900,000.
Yes.
About 900,000, since they are the property managers. So that's the charge of the 14%.
Has this been renegotiated since 2018? The GIDA MOU?
It has expired, and we're negotiating random memorandum for mouth to mouth for the month to month. I'm sorry, and it's the MOU has expired, so we're going month to month right now, and we'll try to fix it out.
Okay, so that was the recommendation of the audit. Mr. Cravea, can you give us your input as to what, this was a recommendation by the auditor. It looked like Ancestral Lands at the time agreed that they were going to try to reevaluate that. Do you think this needs to be reevaluated, or it's done being reevaluated, or what's your opinion on this?
We have to renegotiate.
Mr. Cravea, I can't hear you. Wait. Wait, Ron, I can't. Okay, there you go. Okay.
I think one of your people unmuted me or something. Okay. Anyway, back to, let's see, we've had several discussions with Gita on trying to renegotiate the 14.3%. So we've been getting some conflicting information that, well, many say that it's too high. We had the former chair of the land say the same thing, that it was too high. Several people said it was too high. Some professional property managers said it was kind of high. So we did bring it up to Gita, and they kind of like justified to us, gave their justification for the 14, I think it's 14.3%. And so basically they could not budge on that 14.3%. And, they gave their reasons why. And it seems plausible, but, as the board members, we're not sure. We're on a month-to-month right now. We could, go with another property manager, but we never got to that point. We were still negotiating and thinking it through. We haven't moved on it yet. That's why they're in a month-to-month. And throughout the years in the beginning, we were criticized because, we weren't running things properly with procurement. And so we got Gita to come in and help us. So that's one big headache about the procurement and of these vendors and people that want to lease the properties properly. That's where we're at right now. We could still go with a private company or stick with Gita, and hopefully maybe we can still renegotiate it with Gita. But in essence, they've said that it's justified the 14.3%.
All right.
That's where we're at.
Okay. The fees that the auditor talked about with Gita were only for the lease with Ancestral Land. AT&T. And Gita also manages other leases for you. Is that correct? Or other properties for you?
I think it applies to all of it. All of the 14.3% applies to all.
Right. So for all of the rental income that your Ancestral Lands is supposed to receive, Gita's getting a 14.3%. And I understand when they help you with the RFP, the solicitation of how, for lessees for these properties. But after the property's leased out, and what do you think Gita's role is at that time? For example, with AT&T, what's Gita's role right now in your AT&T lease besides collecting the rental amount?
I think that's their role, collecting the rental amount now.
All right. And we just saw an announcement of a settlement for back pay because the rental amount was not collected for, it seems like quite some time because the settlement was quite significant. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess the return kind of like slipped under the radar for some reason. So a few years ago, it was brought up to our attention that we got these lands back. Just being honest. And I think AT&T was prepared for it.
Say that again, Ron. Could you say that again?
I think AT&T throughout the years have been preparing for it. That that the fact that the land was transferred, I think it slipped their radar too, because from what I heard, they were planning. They missed the boat on getting the military to not release that section of the property, which was too late. They did, and so their AT&T is answerable to us now. But I think AT&T is fine with it. But yeah, it was since many years, and I think for me the negotiation was pretty good. It's a good. They owed us about maybe 5.2, and it came down to 4.8 or something. I think it was they wanted 1.6 or something. So coming out with that a number was pretty fair, decent.
Okay.
I'm happy with it, being honest.
All right. Well, I'm just still concerned about the auditor's report. So I would ask the board members, that you review that. And if you need help, then we get some help, because I think it's important to make sure. 14%? Yes, because every dollar that goes outside of your commission is a dollar that's not going to the people the beneficiaries, correct? And that's my concern. It's like, we've got to get the best deal possible because the beneficiaries have been waiting a long time. And so that's it, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and so what about, you know, right now, Mr. Birch, the acting director, told us at the last budget hearing that he's the only staff at the Ancestral Lands at this point. Is that correct?
We're in the dark with that as far as the board members are concerned.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll follow up then maybe later after you two get settled in, the board's able to act, and we can then follow up with any gaps. I was just going to ask about, you know, there were increases in salaries in past couple of years, and I wanted to know about that, but we'll talk about that later then. What about, so I just, you know, I know that there's a push by Bbmr to get you to use these rental payments for your operations and things like this. And I would caution you to be very frugal because this is money that beneficiaries have been waiting for, I think. And we have to resolve the beneficiary issue before we, you know, obligate these funds for expanded operations or anything else. And of course, you need to meet your mandates. So I'm all for that. But I just think these are times when you know, we have to justify every penny pretty much because we are acting in a fiduciary capacity. It's that fiduciary capacity, not like a regular GovQuam agency where you can spend the money. This is not at all like that. You're going to have to answer to these fiduciaries why, you know, any income is been being diverted. So it's almost a bigger burden on you as trustees. And I guess you're here for your confirmation hearing. And I just want to hear, you know, are you up to that task to re-examine again all use of all funds? Because, you know, if this is appropriate at this point. So Mr.
Yes, we're trying to be, you know, very responsible because we need resources, right? In order to, for the highest and best use of the lands and for us to generate revenue, we need the proper resources. We don't really have a conference room right now. I think the acting director is moving with that. We do have, I think we do now have a small office, if I'm correct, but we haven't met since the COVID. Yeah, and we need to have a staff. We need the resources. So if we must tap into it for the benefit of the beneficiaries, then I think, and it gives us a better end goal, then I think that should remain an option because we need to function. I mean, if we're not going to get the money from the government, we need to find a way to continue. You know, we cannot be limping around, and we need resources. So I think that's where we're at right now. But the board, even spending a dime, we would argue. We would go through it with a pink and purple passion. Like, wait a minute, what's that $10 going to? So the board is very responsible in that manner.
Good.
You reminding us of that is a great help, though, of course.
Okay. All right. Well, good, because right, I know they're going to be tough times all around the government, but this commission, I want you to function, but I want you to be creative also, you know, where you can share resources, do that. Your mission has changed. You're not having your hearings every day like you used to, you know, to extinguish claims. Now it's a whole other ball game. Now you're managing property. Now you're managing income. And, you know, we don't need to grow a giant organization to do that. We need a very streamlined one. So that's all. I'm just trying to encourage you. And Ms. Orlino, are you up to this, to do this again? Oh, can you turn on the mute button? Press the mute button.
Yes, I'm for it, and we'll be very structured. We're going to make sure that accountability is there. We just have to. It's not us, it's the people. So that's why we're here for them.
All right. Well, this is going to be a very important commission at this point because, like we've discussed, there's a big, huge shift that may occur or that may get cemented in place if we can get consensus, right? We are going to cement how we are going to finally deal with the remaining beneficiaries, those whose lands we are kind of determining will not be returned, unfortunately. And I hope that you never lose your passion for seeking out lands that can, that we can demand returned. And I intend to include it in the Chamorro Land Trust legislation that we're writing right now that's resolving, land loss also, that this is in no way relieving anybody of any duty to return lands to these ancestral landowners, okay?
Right.
So I want you I want to thank you for the many years. This is really a dedicated board, and I know, it comes from the heart. We've all, your families have suffered, and you have worked for all the rest of the families to get their land, and so I appreciate all that work. And I know it's not easy.
Yeah,
It is
thank
a
you.
tough job to be the jury and the researcher and the
Right.
legal experts. That's what you all had to do in all these land claims, and
Right.
we're dealing with sometimes very complex matters. And so I want to thank you, and for putting up with being sued and criticism. Yes, so
That's okay.
don't give up. Don't give up. And I
No.
know it's tough, and we, so I'm hoping we're going to have a good board moving forward. And if there's anything else you would like to say, Senator Perez, or well, let's ask the nominees for Ms. Erlino. Anything else?
No, I'm just saying if we could right one wrong, it'll be perfect. Just right one wrong and continue, right?
Thank you. Yes, thanks. Mr. Eclavea, any other comments?
Thank you, you and your committee for having this hearing, and of course the front office, the governor, for having a confidence in renominating us for our another term. We appreciate it very much.
Senator Perez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And it's nice to meet you too, Mr. Eclavea. Yeah, this has been a very interesting discussion, and definitely anything that you need as far as getting the word out to the remaining claimants. I'm willing to provide some help or some ideas behind that. Yeah, and then as far as the rules and regs, I'm looking forward to taking a look at those rules and regs and perhaps providing some sort of input as well.
Great.
So, yeah, so thank you again for accepting the nomination.
Thank
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you again to the nominees, and thank you to the Acting Director, Mr. Birch. Thank you very much for your assistance today.
Thank you, Senator.
And so we are going to follow up with you on the budget after you're confirmed, and then on the just management of these rental properties. And all right, there being no additional testimony, I'm going to consider these nominations heard. It is 3:18 p.m. Sidus Masi.